Hi guys, it's Adrian. Welcome back to, what's the name of this podcast again?
ALTERKNIT.
Right. Hi guys, it's Adrian. Welcome back to ALTERKNIT. Of course I'm joking. I wouldn't forget you guys. It's just that I've been gone for such a long time, as a few of you have noticed. I know a lot of people don't really like it when a podcaster apologizes for being away for a while and explains why. I'm not apologizing, but I do want to explain to you why I've been gone for a while. I needed a break. I needed a break from podcasting. I needed a break from knitting. I needed a break from work. I needed a break from everything. And I took some time off work and I just did nothing. I stayed at home with Reese and just felt like a human being again. I think I was feeling a bit burned out, a little overworked and that kind of thing. Don't get me wrong, I love what I do. I love my job and I love podcasting, but it just got very mundane and I needed to have a little bit of a break. And that's why I've been gone. And I think self-care is really important. I think it's really important for you guys to take care of yourselves, especially if you are parents or carers, not because you have this other person who is relying on you, because you know you're worth looking after yourself on your own as you are. It's just that you often don't put yourself anywhere near first or even really consider your own needs. So I think it's important for everyone to look after themselves, and self-care is really important. And if you are having problems, then, you know, someone that you confide in, talk to them about it. Even if you don't have anyone that you feel you can talk to, go to the doctor and let the doctor know how you're feeling. Just take care of yourself. Well, enough of that, because that's got nothing to do with knitting. I want to tell you a story. Once upon a time, maybe 1,000 years ago, somebody asked you who your favorite designers were. And then you bored him all with your answers and he fell asleep for 1,000 years. And I do remember asking you guys who your favorite designers were many moons ago. And there was so many responses. There was I think there was 55 individual designers that you all suggested to me, and I'm not going to go through all of them or even anywhere near half of them. You know, it was a huge range and it was really interesting to see, from very pink knits to Comme des Garçons, and you know, some of my favorites as well, like Michelle Wang and Jared Flood. So I did want to talk to you about that today. There was one who suggested a particular designer who had suggested for my shawl project this particular designer, any of her designs. And when I went to her website and looked at them, they were all amazing. They were beautiful, and I struggled to choose which one I wanted to knit, but eventually I did settle on a particular design. But I really, really have to eat humble pie on this one, because I've just not been able to do it. I think it's well out of my skill range. It was, you know, the first time knitting with lace weight yarn, which with my fat fingers, I could barely feel it, let alone work with it. And when I did just practice knit some plain old stockinette, I thought to myself, if this was a lace pattern and I made a mistake and had to unknit it, there's no way I'd be able to make sense of what I'd actually knit. So that kind of freaked me out before I'd even started the project. Even unwinding this yarn was a harrowing experience. And Reese, thank God for Reese, because I don't have the patience, and it all would have ended up in a tangled mess in the bin, and I would have been really cross with myself. But as it was, to unwind 2 skeins of this yarn took a couple of hours, because one of them did get a little bit tangled up and we had to spend a lot of time untangling it. So already this project was more stress than relaxation. And then it got to the actual knitting of the pattern, and you know what it's like. If you're purchasing a pattern, you don't know what the pattern is like really until you buy it and download it and start reading it. And the first thing I read for this pattern was a crocheted cast on. Now, I've only ever held a hook in my hands a couple of times, and that was to repair dropped stitches, and I'm not even sure that it was a successful endeavor. But I had to do a cast on, a crocheted cast on, and specifically Emily Ocker's crocheted cast on, which of course I came here to YouTube to figure out what the heck that was. And if you don't know what that is, to me it's strange. It's crochet cast on, but through a loop of yarn, so that you then have a bunch of stitches that you can put onto double pointed needles in the round. And when you pull on the tail, it completely closes the circle up, so there's no space. And this is how you can knit shawls from the inside out and not have a hole in the middle. but with yarn that was kind of like dental floss on a hook that I could barely see. This was just impossible for me. And to put 2 stitches on each double pointed needle and try to keep track of it, I eventually had to admit that it was just beyond my capabilities at this point in time. So now it has become a bit of unfinished business that I will need to eventually master this and get this pattern knit. No mind though, as I said, all of this designer's shawls were beautiful looking. So I picked another one, and this one was in worsted weight. It was a triangle shawl. I thought, this does not look too difficult. I've done lace motifs that look harder than this. But the same damn problem happened. I couldn't get past the cast on. And I don't know if it was because my skill level was low, and I don't know if it was because the pattern wasn't written for someone who had never knit a shawl before. I mean, it starts off saying, just create a garter tab. I don't know what a garter tab is. I had to go to YouTube to find out what a garter tab was to even understand the instructions. Then I got that done and I could basically go no further. My stitch count was wrong, where I'd placed markers and didn't work out. And I tried and tried and tried different methods. It was too difficult for me. So then I've gone back to Brooklyn Tweed, and I know what you're thinking. Oh my God, what is with you and Brooklyn Tweed? But I said to Reese, it may be how these patterns are written, because I've always said that the Brooklyn Tweed patterns, I've never read a pattern that's knit better than that. That if you've just picked up a couple of chopsticks and a really long noodle, you'd actually be able to follow the instructions and knit something that looks like something. So I did get a Brooklyn Tweed pattern. It's not for a shawl, it's for a stole, which is essentially a really wide scarf. And it is lace, and it's kind of a motif that I've knit before in wool leaves. But I've immediately been able to follow this pattern. It's been easy and it's been pleasant, and I've memorized the lace motif. And for now, I'm sticking to where I'm comfortable. So, don't hate me for that, but I'm back on Brooklyn Tweed patterns. But I did really want to talk to you about these designers that you suggested, because I have struggled to branch out into other designers, and I found some really, really interesting people. So I wanted to talk to you about the 3 most suggested designers. I'm just going to read from my iPad because I wrote a little bit of information about each of the designers, kind of like a blurb for you. So the first designer requested was Kate Davies, and she was suggested a few times. So she's from Scotland's West Highland Way, and she's actually an accomplished author with a doctorate in 18th century history, as well as having contributed to BBC, that's British Broadcasting Company, radio programs on knitting and Shetland wool. She states that she gets inspiration from the landscape and her designs and produces her own Shetland wool, which I think is pretty impressive. Her patterns present a diverse range of garments in very beautiful classic sort of Scottish Highland knits and colour work that reflects the palette from the landscape. But then she also adds in some really brightly coloured modern pieces as well. So there is something for everyone there. You can see her designs on Ravelry, and you just look for Kate Davies, but she does have a website which is shopkdd.com. And some of the favorites that I had from her collection was the Firtho Forth, Lord of the Isles, Fantouche, and I'm not going to say this one correctly, Carafada. So go over to her website, check her out on Ravelry. She's got some really, really pretty looking books that have got, 4 or 5 or 6 designs in them each. So check that out on Ravelry. The next most sort of suggested designer was Michelle Wang. Michelle Wang is a personal favorite of mine. I really love her point of view when it comes to design. And she is one of the star designers for Brooklyn Tweed. She's also knitted for Quince & Co, Woolfolk and others. And she's had her designs featured in Vogue Knitting and Pom Pom Quarterly. Her designs look more like winter closet must-haves rather than staples. She updates classic silhouettes with graphic color work as well as masterful and generous use of oversized cables. When she's not designing knitwear, she can be found on her beauty channel here on YouTube. Just look up, I think it's Mishi2X. If that's incorrect, I'll put a link in the description box below. I'll put a link anyway. So some of her favorites, and I really had to edit this down to a few. Aspen from her capsule collection, Yishu from BT Winter 2015, Bo from the Woolfolk collection, FW15, Radmere from her capsule collection, and Oster, the his version, from BT Fall 2016. You can see a lot of her designs over on Brooklyn Tweed, and Brooklyn Tweed has a lot of patterns in their database, but they also have a very good search function. So you can actually refine your search by designer, by garment type, even by the yarn weight. So head over to Brooklyn Tweed and have a look at Michelle Wang's designs. You can find her on Ravelry as well, and even check out her YouTube channel. She does talk a bit about knitting, although those are generally older videos now. Most of her newer videos are beauty related. So if you're into that as well, check out her channel. Third but not least is a designer called Joji Locatelli, and I've probably butchered that name like I do every other name, but she is an Argentine knitwear designer from Buenos Aires. And Reese pulled me up on how I said that. I don't know. How do you say it? Buenos Aires? Buenos Aires? Anyway, she loves to design clean and drapey garments that have got lots of little detail, which I appreciate. So a few of the favorites that I found from her were the 3-color cowl, the Spectrum shawl, Rhapsody in Cables pullover, and the Camellia pullover. So that's where I'm at the moment. I continue to be inspired by all of the different designers that you guys love to follow. And I have a great appreciation for all the different work that they do. I'm kind of still stuck in my Brooklyn Tweed rut. And I don't necessarily think that is a bad thing. There are a lot of great designers and there's a lot of great designs that come from this company. I did want to ask you a question though, and of course, as always, this will be posted over on Instagram, so head along over there. My name is _ALTERKNIT, and you can get involved in the comments there or leave a comment below here. And my question for you this week is, knitting is a guilty pleasure for all of us, but if it isn't knitting, what's your other guilty pleasure? Let me know and I'll talk to you guys next week. All right, stay cool, stay safe, and I will see you when I see you. All right guys, bye.